I was going to mention COVID because it was about a month ago that you wrote in Italia che Cambia a couple of articles on how COVID might help change the mindset. But I take it that the news from the last week has maybe had you rephrase or reframe your thinking on that.
The first article I wrote exactly a year ago at the beginning of the crisis, and it was an hypothesis. I was just saying, well, could it be that this kind of crisis would open some people's eyes, or enough people's eyes, to convince them that we do need a change? And the other article I wrote only a few months ago, and it was taking into account what has happened instead. And yeah, again, it is disappointing because, I mean, people keep focusing on trying to solve the problem now, which obviously we need to find a solution for. But there is still very little attention put on the fact that this is only one case, one pandemic, and effectively we are lucky that it's a kind of virus with a low lethality level, because if it had been something like Ebola, it would have been a catastrophe. And the fact is that it was at least 20 years that scientists were saying, look, if we keep with deforestation, etc., we will have more viral infections. I mean, it's inevitable because we are encroaching on natural environment. We are getting more and more in touch with wild animals. And it's, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know that it will cause something like that. And yet, I mean, no one really paid much attention to it. And still now, I don't think there is enough attention placed to that specific problem. The way we are using the environment is unsustainable in many ways, and viral infections are just one of the problems. We will have more. And the fact is that in a globalized world, these kind of illness travels very fast. I mean, that's the difference between the past. I mean, we always had these kind of viral infections in human history, but usually they would be localized because there wasn't so much traveling of people and goods. Nowadays, it's, again, it doesn't take a scientist to understand that a viral infection in anywhere in the world can spread across the whole world in a matter of days or months. And still, I don't think there's enough attention from the governments and enough awareness in people with this idea of, let's say, of, oh, let's look after our people first. Well, it's nonsense. Our people, it's the world. If we solve the problem in Europe and we don't solve it in Africa, well, next year we'll be back to square one. How to hammer that into people's head, I don't know, even because the media doesn't help at all. And social media makes it even worse. If there is something that came blatantly to the surface in the last year, is how social media has given a voice to everybody, which is great. It's fully democratic, whatever, but it gave voice to lots of people who should really shut up. In a sense, in the past, every village had his own fool, you know, and the fool would go to the bar, and people would, good people would sort of tolerate the person, pay him a glass of wine, and sort of laugh at what he was saying. The bad people would sort of push the person to say something even worse, and because it was fun, etc. But it was the fool of the village, and things remained there. Now we've got all the fools of all the villages that can talk to each other and have an audience. And think that they're very important and have loads of people who listen to them. And the trouble is that we've got that kind of people in places of responsibility in governments. I mean, we had Trump and Bolsonaro as presidents of great nations. So with millions of people listening and believing to them. So that is, it's really a serious problem. At the same time, what do? Do you start censoring what people say online? Well, that is not an option. And also, if you were to decide to filter somehow the information that circulates, who decides what to filter? I mean, that's really dangerous. Even because these tools for communication are in the hands of very few people. Now, you may be lucky that these people may have a conscience and be intelligent, etc., or maybe not, you don't know. So it is very, very risky. And again, I think it's really in the hands of young people to become more critical, more capable of reading between the lines and acting in that sense. I must say that, I mean, however much Greta Thunberg could be manipulated or whatever, I think we need more of that kind of young people, simply because they, not only the message they carry is right, but they have that kind of charisma that can make a sufficient number of young people think and act. And since they are the next ones who are going to vote, I think that would necessarily have to make governments think about their policies. And since they are the ones who will buy goods, again, corporations will have to listen to them because they cannot lose their audience, their voters, and their buyers. I know that it's not the ideal situation, but in practical terms, I think it's one of the possibilities.
Thank you. It's just made me think what we need is an old version of Greta Thunberg to persuade people of older generations that are not seeing what sometimes we think the young people should be seeing, because I think the problem is just across the generations. There's not
Yes.
a lack of awareness in some sectors and not others.